Hello and welcome to the continuing coverage of the local campaign here on Rogers TV. My name is Mike Farwell, and we appreciate you joining us today as we help you get better prepared for the municipal election on October the 24th. Our forum today will feature the candidates vying for your vote for Mayor of Kitchener. I will introduce them to you alphabetically as we have with us in studio Manny Nair, Val Nieckman, and Barry Verbanovic. Each of our candidates will be afforded 2 minutes for an opening statement here today, and then we will have a question and answer period moderated by myself. Each candidate will also have 2 minutes to answer each question before we get into closing statements, again, of 2 minutes apiece. If there is an opportunity required for a rebuttal during our conversation, it will be at my discretion, and I will afford the person who was named in a different response an additional 30 seconds to rebut what had been said previously. So, with that out of the way, the most important thing for you is to be able to hear from your candidates vying for Mayor of Kitchener. Let us begin with opening statements, and again, we will proceed alphabetically and begin with Manny Nair.
Hello everyone, my name is Manigandan Nair, in short, Mani Nair. My family and I have been living in Canada for almost 21 years, and we have been living in Kitchener for a very long time. Currently, I work at University of Guelph in the field of network and cyber security, but I've been very passionate about community issues and helping people. So because of this passion, in 2018, me and a couple of my friends, we started an initiative called Namaste Debate to help candidates run for public office. After this initiative, I actively started participating in community activities and in my own way. And after that, I decided that just by talking alone, we cannot change anything. We have to be part of the system. So in order to be part of the system, we need to be in a position of power to make changes. So that's the reason I'm running for the Mayor of Kitchener. So if you want to know more about me and my platform, please visit www.votefornair.ca. Again, votefornair.ca. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nair. And now, Val Nieckman.
You know, at some point in your life, you turn back and you see all the dots that you've created in the past. Those dots are your experiences. And when you see a very smooth, progressive line connecting those dots together, you are content and you are happy. At that moment, when you are happy and appreciate the fact that the universe has been very nice and kind to you, you want to pay it forward. And look around and realize that charity starts from home. With that said, whenever I travel away from home and I'm on the way back and I see the sign Kitchener, I shout out loud, home sweet home. Kitchener has been my home, and Kitchener has been great to me and my family. Hello, my name is Val Nieckman. I'm running for Mayor of Kitchener. I'm an entrepreneur with 25 years of experience. With a good balanced set of skills, I've contributed to the bottom lines of many companies, small, medium, large, in Canada and the US. I lived in both countries. I back that with a whole ton of energy that I bring to my campaign. You know, Kitchener deserves better. Just keeping the status quo is not enough. Just keeping the taxes at bay is not enough. I want a thriving Kitchener. I want my city to be prosperous. I want to attract the best talent from all around the globe. I'm a tech guy. I find the best way to run the city smooth, and together we could do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nieckman. And now candidate Barry Verbanovic.
Thank you very much, Mike, and thank you to those tuning in to today's debate. I love our city. I love the people of Kitchener. I've dedicated my life to public service and I'm passionate and tireless in serving you as your mayor. In the time since you gave me the privilege of serving you, our list of shared accomplishments is long, even after pulling together as a community over the past 24 plus months in our shared journey with the COVID-19 global pandemic. Through it all, we continue to implement our award-winning Love My Hood neighborhood strategy while also investing in recreational amenities such as RBJ Schlegel Park, the Dune Pioneer Park Community Center expansion, and the new Tartan Avenue Community Center. We also approved a new aquatic facility and field house to be built in RBJ Schlegel Park by 2025. We also heard your desire to see the city play a leadership role locally with housing affordability and homelessness, and we've done that with our Housing for All strategy built on housing as a human right, while also creating an Office of Equity, Anti-Racism, and Indigenous Initiatives and enhancing service delivery by offering services to our residents in over 200 languages. In addition, we approved a new economic development strategy consisting of investments in pandemic recovery initiatives, affordable housing, and investments in the health innovation and creative media industries. And we did all this while keeping our taxes amongst the lowest in the province, while also investing in the services and infrastructure our community needs both today and tomorrow. We've accomplished so much together, but there's still more to be done. Tonight and throughout the campaign, I look forward to ask you for your continued support as we strive to build a better Kitchener together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Verbanovic. We will now move into the question and answer portion of our forum. Each candidate, once again, will get 2 minutes per answer. Mr. Nieckman, I will address the first question to you, and then we'll go down the line of our panelists here today. We'll start with the issue of homelessness, which we can all visibly see is a serious issue in our community. Granted, it is an area that is overseen by our regional government, but should you be successful as Mayor of Kitchener, you would automatically have a seat at the regional table. So, Mr. Nieckman, how would you combat homelessness in the city of Kitchener?
I personally visited both campsites, 2 of them that I visited. One is Weber and Victoria Street, the other one, Central Island in Victoria Park. I talk to people, and I noticed that 2 campsites were of different natures. The first one on Weber and Victoria was mostly from people who were down on their lucks. They probably didn't have any income, lost their jobs, they were on the streets, and they found their way to Kitchener. The second group were addicted to some substance of some sort, and they really needed help. And the third had some mental health issues. I talked to all of them, and then I moved to the other campsite, and I noticed that the other campsite, they were very well organized. They had a website, they had a forum, and they had set of demands. I looked at the people, none of them were sick, all could work, most of them at least could work, the one that I saw. So I have to deal with 2 campsites differently. The first thing that I will do, I will take care of the campsite on Weber and Victoria Street. I will take care of them with compassion and with empathy and with understanding that I'm not a judge. I'm not there to judge them. I'm just there to give them a helping hand. I will work with the member of council. We will look to see how we could subsidize some rent. Those folks who've lost their jobs and they're there, we could send them back to the community. And then as far as the folks that they're addicted, we have to send them to detox and then back to the communities. The third group with mental health issues is a little bit more challenging, and I will seek advice from the experts to deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nieckman. Mr. Nair, on combating homelessness.
I just want to echo what Weil said, because when I went to Victoria Park, I also saw 2-3 different types of people who were having different issues. One was the addiction issue. One was the way things, they grew up at family. They got into the other aspects of, drugs and addiction. Those kind of mental health is another big issue. So I always believe in order to fix this, there are a couple of things we have to do. One thing is how to give a peaceful environment at home, because if we are able to give them as a parent, I think the kids will be able to educate and stand on their own feet. But if we don't support them as parents, and if the society doesn't support them, and if we leave them alone, we cannot say we love our neighborhood, because sometimes the slogans take over the reality. Last few years, what I've seen is, like, every major intersection, we have somebody seeking help. And I'm very surprised, living in Canada, which is one of the richest countries in the world, developed countries in the world, why we are seeing so many people on the street asking for money, right? This is a real tragedy here, and this is growing. In order to tackle this, because we have two issues here, one is the homelessness and the other is the affordable housing. I would say now even the affordable housing is gone away. It's very hard to achieve that. The objective that we should set up is attainable housing, because this requires, this we cannot solve it just with city alone. It requires a collaborative interaction with the federal and provincial government, because we need money. According to the City of Kitchener 2022 budget review, I saw at the moment we need 9,000 houses. And for that, where is the money? 10 million, 20 million won't solve the issue. At the moment, Waterloo region itself needs $1 billion investment, which the government is investing for the whole of Canada. So, but this requires a collaborative effort. With city alone, we cannot do. But what I believe is, if I have the power to change, I will change few things. But if I don't have the power, I will collaborate with other representatives from different governments to see what we can do. But we need definitely $1 billion in Waterloo and the Kitchener alone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nair and Mr. Verbanovic, on combating homelessness.
Yes, thank you very much, Michael. And I think what's important to recognize here, this is not an issue that's unique to Kitchener or Waterloo region, but in fact it's probably the largest issue impacting urban centres across Canada and in Ontario. Just to give a sense of the scope of it, in Waterloo region, the point-in-time count that was done prior to the pandemic saw about 300 homeless people. The one that was done last year saw that number at over 1,000, and we know that number has grown since then. And it's a complex issue that has many factors, including housing affordability, mental health and trauma, job loss, poverty, and addictions to synthetic drugs, and of course, the opioid crisis. It's something that ultimately needs an all-of-community solution. It's not something that the city or the region can solve on their own. In fact, there is significant leadership and investment that has to happen from the federal government in terms of housing stock being built, and from the provincial government in terms of their support of social services and wraparound services for these individuals. At the region, I've been pushing on a variety of these issues, including the motion that was adopted in June that now sees the region taking a housing strategy and the steps and the investments that were announced over the last little while to deal with the encampments that exist. At the city, we completed our Housing for All strategy, built on a human rights-centered approach. As a city, we've been supportive of a Better Tent City from early in its inception, and have provided the land as an example for the YWCA project on Blockline Road. Victoria Park started as part of an annual protest for 15 years, but has grown because of the scope of the problem in the region as a whole. And we've decided to take a holistic and compassionate approach that balances the needs and the safety of those who are in the encampment, as well as those of the neighborhoods and park users. Finally, we've been working with Leilani Farha from the Shift and the Right to Home Working Group with other Canadian cities in our advocacy in dealing with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Verbanovic. Mr. Nair, you will be the first to answer this next question, which is connected to the first around homelessness, but we want to drill in specifically now on the encampments that have been mentioned. Starting with you, Mr. Nair, should encampments be a part of our overall housing strategy? In other words, should we sanction them as places to live?
You know, when I hear the word encampment, it reminds me of slums in different other parts of the developing countries. It's just a more sanitized version. Encampment is just like slums in other developing countries. What we are seeing is, what we're going to do, some people say that move them from there, but my question is, where they're going to move and how you're going to move them. I don't believe in the force moving of encampment, people living in encampments. It's easier said than done. They have to go somewhere else. And what if they split across different cities? And it's a bigger problem. I don't see this problem being fixed until and unless we make even less affordable housing and let them have a space there. Like I spoke to some of the encampment residents there, and they said they're also getting Ontario disability leave, so that disability money for their funding. And I think that money can be used. Let's say if they're able to pay $400, we can have less than affordable housing, but it requires a passion from leaders from within the city and other leaders to take up this issue as a priority. I've been talking about this housing crisis for 5-6 years. There's a smoke. Everybody was sleeping, and all of a sudden now, it's before the election, it becomes a big topic. So it requires a collaborative effort, but as a mayor of Kitchener, I will take this as one of the top priorities to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nair. Mr. Vrbanovic, on sanctioning encampments.
Thanks, Mike. And as I said, this is a really complex issue with a variety of things and many partners that need to come at the table. From a City of Kitchener point of view, we are stepping up and dealing with this issue, both in terms of our advocacy efforts with the federal and provincial governments. Just recently, in fact, a few months ago, the Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus called on the Premier and the ministers for an urgent meeting with all of the mayors in Ontario looking to deal with this issue. We're still waiting to hear back on it. From a regional point of view, in terms of the local ones that we're dealing with, I've been very clear on my position, and that is that there need to be viable places for these individuals to go before I'm prepared to see them forced off any particular properties. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have better alternatives than currently is in place. And that's why one of the options that is being looked at is the managed encampment. That's one of the proposals that regional staff are looking to implement before winter flies. And we're also looking to see additional spots being created in terms of indoor shelter, as well as using more hotels and so on until permanent housing can be built. At the end of the day, we know the best option that's going to have the best outcomes for these individuals is permanent supportive housing that can then see them transition into deeply affordable and ultimately into the full housing continuum. But that is going to require significant investments from the federal government. And through my experience, past experience both as the past president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, as well as a member of the federal and Ontario Big City Mayors Caucuses, we've been able to do the work that's necessary, and we've seen progress, but there's more work to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Vrbanovic. And Mr. Niekman on encampments.
Whether we like it or not, the encampment is here, and it's our problem, and we have to deal with it. We have to deal with it with dignity and in a very compassionate way. I went to Binghamton next to Grand River, and they have a campsite. And I looked at it, and I noticed that I could lease that place as a mayor. The city could lease that place, and we could turn that place to something very temporary, such that we could move people there because the cold season is upon us. As long as we don't take care of the people right away, we will not have a good time with ourselves. We're not going to have the happiness that we want within ourselves to sit down and talk to each other and think about it, to find the root cause and to solve the problem properly. Just moving people from here to there and taking photos with, people that come into town. Photo ops is not going to fix anything. Vague promises of $2 billion Canada-wide is not going to help with anything in Kitchener. This is a Kitchener problem now. We understand that other cities, they have the same problem, but I'm running for Mayor of Kitchener, and I am looking to see how I could fix this problem for Kitchener. As I mentioned, everything starts from Kitchener for me. Once we figure out what we do, anything that we've done, if they turn out good, we will document those and share it with other municipalities, and we ask them to rinse and repeat. And I reach out to other cities, and if they've done something that is working out really well, I will ask for feedback, and I will try to implement those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Niekman. We know that along with the problems we're seeing with homelessness in our community, there is a housing crisis. It's been talked about in communities clear across this country, and of course, Kitchener is not immune. Mr. Verbanovic, I'll begin this response with you and your 2 minutes. As Mayor of Kitchener, what would you do to accelerate the creation of new housing, specifically affordable housing?
Thanks, Mike. It's a very good question, and it's something that actually the City of Kitchener has been very engaged in through its Housing for All strategy, through our advocacy efforts with the federal government, and through our collaboration with the region of Waterloo and community partners. First of all, in terms of the federal government, we have been able to successfully see things like the Rapid Housing Initiative move forward. In fact, the Prime Minister just recently announced the third phase of that money. We've seen a number of projects locally benefit from that, and we hope that and believe that there are certainly viable projects that need to be part of that third phase going forward. As a city, we've also, through our economic development strategy, recognized that affordable housing needs to be part of that strategy, and in fact have set aside $15 million from that strategy to be specifically dedicated to the continuum of affordable housing, with our very first investment being over $2 million in land to the YW so that they could benefit from the RHI money that the federal government made available. And so today we see 42 women in this region now have supportive housing, and we see additional housing in phase 2 being built for women with children going forward. As a city, we've also committed $2 million towards the waiving of development charges for affordable housing projects, and created a new position in the planning department to fast-track approvals for any projects that involve not-for-profit affordable housing, so that we can get this housing built quicker going forward. Finally, we've also done a number of things to create more affordability within our communities through things like tiny homes, secondary suites, and so on, and have been one of the first communities, both locally and in Ontario, to support those initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Verbanovic. Mr. Niekman, on creating more homes in the city, specifically affordable homes.
One thing that we need to realize is that the inflation is out of hand. The inflation is creating all this havoc. When prices of homes, they double in 1 year, that will leave everybody out there searching for a home. I will start with rent. Let me focus on rent first. So what I will do within the 4-year period of my mandate, what I'll do, I will authorize all homeowners a permit. Whoever finishes their basement properly, they will get a tax-free permit. And then the city will give all homeowners $1,000 in grant should they provide a door where the tenants could enter that basement directly without going through the main home. That will put a lot of available spaces for people to rent. Minimally, the kids move down, they don't go out and rent externally, and that increases supply. When the supply goes up, the demand comes down and the rent goes down. This is the first thing that I will do. The second item is densification. I will look through core downtown, any buildings, 2, 3, 4-story buildings that they are not designated heritage. I will authorize with the council to make sure that they get permit to build high-rises. And the third and the last is land reappropriation. From the east side, we cannot go beyond the river, but from the west side, we will look at lands that we could change zoning on and build new homes. Hopefully this time around, we get it right and don't build mega-sized homes. That is my plan.
Thank you, Mr. Niekman. And Mr. Nair.
Hi. So, in order to tackle this issue, there has to be, like I mentioned in the previous comment, that it will require some collaboration. But one thing I have to say is, I'm basically an immigrant. I support strong immigration, but I don't support mass immigration. When I came to Canada 21 years back, it was balanced immigration. So at that time, we didn't have this housing crisis. Why is it? So right now what's happening is because the federal government has a mass immigration, more people coming in, and less houses being built. In Kitchener alone, we need 9,000 houses. When are we going to build it? So the only way we can do is how to stop this backlog issues. The only way we can do is we need federal cooperation in making immigration balance, and in the meantime, we increase the inventory. Okay, we want to increase the inventory, but different people have different needs. Somebody needs 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. They have different budgets. The affordability word is just simple. If you pay $100, you should be able to rent it for $30. That's never going to happen at the moment. We require at least 60% of the money goes for the rental now. How are we going to do that? 1 bedroom cost not less than $1,500. So more people coming in, less houses being built. I would request the federal government for next 5 to 7 years, at least do balanced immigration. Let's say 1,000 people are coming in, make it 700. And in the meantime, increase the capacity. The other thing is housing need. How do we even know what people need? We don't even have a website. So as a mayor, what I'm going to propose is a Kitchener in Need housing web portal so that we see how many people need 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and what's their budget. The other thing we need to do is when the people come in to Canada, the federal government has to coordinate with provinces and cities to let them know in advance that this year we're going to have this many people. And do you have houses? If you don't have houses, let the people know who are coming here. Otherwise, they are struggling. I meet so many students here. Now, in last 5 to 6 years, we've seen so many students come in, and now they're living in one house, 10 students living there. We cannot do that. So we have to do a balanced immigration, and that we require federal help. In the meantime, all federal, province, everybody has to chip in and increase the capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nair. Okay, we know from recent data that the region's population, currently at just over 600,000, is expected to increase by some 50% to a community of more than 900,000 by 2051. That means a lot of the growth will also be seen, of course, in the city of Kitchener. Mr. Nieckman, I will begin with you. As mayor, how would you manage that kind of growth?
Well, people come here because the city and the region is great. What I will do, I have to attract good companies to come here and open shop here. I will reach out to Tesla and I will ask them to bring and locate a mega or gigafactory, put it in Kitchener. I'll reach out to Amazon and I will ask them to bring a warehouse here. We want to create blue collar and white collar jobs. With those jobs, with all the taxes that are being paid and all the money funneled back into the city, we have to plan the city for growth. We have to design it first and then build it. We cannot just go and build it and see what happens. We have the room to grow. We have the capacity to do it. We just have to attract the talent. And the talent is in abundance here. We have University of Waterloo. Everybody comes here to get our new grads. And we have to make sure they don't come and take away our talent. Those talented individuals are the ones that they're designing the cities of the future. I will bring the companies here and I will get them to hire them locally. And this way we could work together and build a prosperous city. If the level of income is low, we cannot do anything because everything that the city gets, everything that the city does is based on an income, a portion of somebody's income. So we have to make sure people make good living wages in Kitchener. And the only way that we should do it is through use of technologies, not the good old ways. We know how to do it. You just need somebody with technology background like myself to come here and spearhead this mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nieckman. Mr. Nair, on managing growth.
I won't make false promises. So managing growth, right now I see organic growth already happening in Canada, like people are opening up retail shop. But what I don't see happening here is corporate jobs, corporations coming here. The only way you can attract them is some sort of an incentive. The question is what the city can offer. Can the city offer them land at a subsidized rate? Can the city offer tax subsidization? But for that, I basically have to understand, once I get elected, I need to know what are the incentives that we can do legally. If there are challenges, basically I will have discussion with other stakeholders to see what we can do. Like in US, I think the governors, they have the power. Even the mayors can basically invite, just like if you look at Amazon. Recently Amazon, when they wanted to open up an office outside the US branch, And in US, companies were offering them incentives. And I think here we are limited by law what the mayor can do. So I have to look into that, but I won't give any false promises. But definitely I will talk to everyone. One of the things I have in my agenda is talk to even IKEA to see if we can bring them here instead of opening a small office here. But I will go and talk to all the corporation CEO. I won't mind going there instead of waiting for them to come to me. I'll be your brand ambassador to see how we can do sustainable growth. We don't want just growth for the namesake, because we also need homes here. How do we do that? We don't have to build condominiums. We have to build apartments so that we fix the rental home. Start from the basic. We don't have to do that. So when companies come in, there are jobs being created, but where are the people going to live? So we have to fix that issue also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nair. And Mr. Verbanovic, your vision for managing growth.
Thanks, Mike. And I'm certainly encouraged to hear the enthusiasm around growth, because that's exactly what we've been doing locally. And it's why we've seen the largest growth in the country, or second largest over the last few years within our region. But that means continuing to not take our foot off the EV pedal, accelerator pedal going forward, but in fact ensuring that we continue to see that developing, whether it's companies like Google, for example, that started as a small acquisition of 20 and now will have over 1,500 employees in Kitchener, or some of the many startups and scale-ups that started right here in Waterloo region and are now employing hundreds of employees, and in fact have become unicorns themselves, like Applyboard and Vidyard and others. But that economic growth also requires residential growth. And so as a region, we recently approved our new regional official plan, and it takes the position of maintaining a hard countryside line, protecting our farmland, while also ensuring that we create 15-minute neighborhoods and intensify both in the downtowns and in suburbia. As a city, we recently approved our new zoning bylaw, the first comprehensive update of that since 1985. And we've used provincial dollars as an example to ensure that our planning department is working as efficiently as possible in order to make sure that we can support residential development as much as possible. Finally, from an affordability point of view, we continue to work together with the City of Waterloo on inclusionary zoning as a way to deal with affordability, as well as on initiatives such as RAINS, which was our residential intensification guidelines, and of course, things like tiny homes and so on, which I referenced earlier.
Thank you very much for that response. It's interesting that an accelerator pedal was used in that response, because I wanted to ask next about safe streets. Mr. Nair, you will be first on this particular question. The City of Kitchener has recently adopted a 40-kilometer-per-hour speed limit on residential streets. What is an appropriate speed limit for residential streets?
I can tell you, there are one thing. One is on the highway you see 100. Even the law enforcement agencies know everybody drives on 120. Okay, so there is always a buffer there. From 50 to 40 is not a difference. If you make 50 to 30, there may be a difference, but that still doesn't change the behavior of a speedster. The only way we can change this is we need to have cameras, and the revenue from that camera should go to municipality. I said this many years back, and now it is already there at the school zones. The revenue for the camera should go to the city, and that acts as a deterrence. The other thing what we can do is sort of a speed radar where it shows actually the speed of your vehicle. That psychologically also slow down the speedster. But I don't see a reason, like from 50 to 40, what difference will it make? If we're going to spend, I think, probably $300,000, $500,000 of the taxpayers' money for these things. This may look good for some people, but I think overall it doesn't change the human behavior. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Verbanovic, on an appropriate speed limit for residential streets.
Thanks, Mike. And this is probably the single biggest issue that councillors hear about in their wards from residents as they deal with issues throughout the year. And so the decision to move towards 40 kilometers was actually based on that feedback from residents, looking at a comprehensive range of approaches that include traffic calming when it's appropriate, that include things like signage, like the things that you see in the middle of the road and so on going forward. Those are all things that have allowed us to make progress. And in fact, there is a big difference between 50 and 40. The chances of somebody not being seriously injured or surviving a collision when they're hit at 40 versus 50, if it happens, and obviously we hope that it doesn't happen, the chances of them actually being able to come out of that successfully is increased substantially. In addition to that, as a city, we have adopted a Vision Zero approach in terms of dealing with these kinds of traffic issues. That is a North American standard among cities, and in fact, cities around the world have adopted it to work and strive towards zero accidents happening that have any sort of injury or fatality. And finally, as a city, we have adopted a complete streets approach that balances not just the needs of the car, but in fact the needs of pedestrians, cyclists, those who are perhaps using scooters and so on, looking at the full range of transportation choices for people so that our streets are safe for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Verbanovic and Mr. Niekman, on safe streets and what is an appropriate speed limit.
We cannot teach our young drivers that if you don't see a sign, the speed is 50 kilometers an hour, and then go and change the 50 that is on the right sign, and then go put a 40 in the middle of the road. We don't want to confuse our young ones. Which sign to go with? When the police stops you, is the sign that was there on the right side that people took test that was saying 50? Should we go by that and give ticket to young drivers, or should we go by the signs in the middle of the road that they block the traffic? Which one? We have to find one way and stick with that way. 40 is good. You put 40, they go 50, you put 50, they go 60. It does not really matter as far as those yellow signs in the middle of the roads. I have not seen those signs making any impact. I have one of those on my street, and people drive as fast as they want. So we have to educate them, educate the young ones, not just take a quick test, 2 seconds to see whether they pass or not. We have to educate them and teach them that safe speed is the speed that you're comfortable and you could stop the car. If it's 50 on the right side, then it's 50. But should no confusion be made for the young ones. I'm very disappointed. Whoever that is sitting, designing our cities and the roads, we have roundabouts, they're so small that the main street is straight and people just gun it, and I've been T-boned a couple of times almost. We have King Street between Union and Victoria that is one lane. If a bus breaks down between those who are behind them, unless you have a quadcopter button in your car, you're stuck. I believe that at the city level, we have not surrounded ourselves with people who understand roads design. We have to start from there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Niekman. Mr. Nair, I see your hand, but I just want to remind us that we're answering questions. Everybody gets their time for a response and not doing a back and forth unless somebody says something directly to one of the other candidates. But I appreciate your enthusiasm, to be sure. Next, I would like to move on to arts and culture. And the city of Kitchener has a rather robust arts and culture sector, including some entertainment. We've got the Centre and the Square and the Art Gallery and a museum downtown and the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, just to name a few. Mr. Verbanovic, starting with you on this question, how do you see the arts, culture, and entertainment sector fitting into the overall economy in the city of Kitchener?
Mike, it's a great question, and one that is so critical as we look to enhancing the quality of life of residents in our community. It's why the city, as the largest urban center in this region of 630,000, has always made substantive investments in this area, whether in the Centre and the Square, which you've identified, obviously the auditorium, but also our support of the Registry Theatre that has St. Jerome's J.M. Drama alumni in there, as well as the very generous gift of the Conrad family to us during the pandemic of the Conrad Center for the Performing Arts, which the city now has in their ownership. And we're actually working with all of these facilities to look at what is the most effective way to ensure these facilities are being run collectively, and supporting particularly our small and upcoming local arts and culture organizations going forward. The city has a substantive granting program that has been made available through our Tier 1 and Tier 2 grants to support community groups, as well as to support other cultural institutions like the museum, which, for example, has continued to see significant attendance in the downtown and be part of a really vibrant sector that brings shows to our community that otherwise you would typically go to Toronto or New York to see, such as the recent Rolling Stones Unzipped exhibit going forward. So this is something that we want to continue to build on. It's something that residents have identified in our recent Environic survey as a priority, and it's something through Kitchener events and through all of these partnerships that as mayor, I will continue to ensure that investments are made and that we see an excellent quality of life for residents across ages and across different interests and diversity.
Thank you, Mr. Verbanovic. Mr. Nieckman, on the role of arts and culture in Kitchener's economy.
We are very lucky that we're next to Stratford, and I think we should partner with them, and then we should do something together, something of grand scheme. That should not be a one-time thing. We should do it every year. We have Oktoberfest. That attracts a lot of people here. It directly has nothing to do with arts, but when people come here, they share their experiences with us. I am very disappointed when some students, they want to have a party on the street and the city prevents that. We should talk to them and get them to get organized and get them to make it into an annual thing. There are so many things that could happen in the city of Kitchener. I believe that if many people are unhappy, a lot of artists, and they are on the street barely making the ends meet, I think the last thing on their mind is for us to spend more money on centers like that. So let's help the artists first. Let's make sure that they get on their feet, and then we take the next step and we build whatever else that we need to build for them. My priorities are help the artists first and then build something for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nieckman. And Mr. Nair, on the importance of arts and culture in the overall economy.
You know, I was born in India, so nobody, other than, if you know India, it's the most diverse country in the world in terms of arts and culture. Comparing India and comparing Canada, I think we are still a long way to go there. But as a mayor, what I want to see is we have a lot of festivals. Let's say Stratford Festival, Oktoberfest. I was talking to one of the representatives of the Oktober Festival. So they don't see a lot of immigrants coming. They're seeing more local residents who have been here for long, a lot of disconnect. So the immigrants don't know what is an Oktoberfest. Only thing they know is it's a sort of a beer festival, nothing else. So as a mayor, I will have a discussion with the city staff to see how we can engage more new immigrants and the immigrants who have come here in last 20, 30 years to see how we can promote these events amongst those communities. I also like to see how we can basically learn from Quebec. Quebec is one of the cultural sort of a capital of Canada, where when I went to Quebec, there's so many cultural activities going on. And if you go to Kitchener downtown after 8 o'clock, you just see there's nothing there. The other thing as a mayor I want to see is the park, use of park. Right now during summer, we see people hanging out there. That's good. But what about winter? There's no activity. So as a mayor, I like to see more street festivals around the park and maybe food trucks. And this will also enhance the local businesses. So that's what I'm going to do, the realistic approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nair. Mr. Nieckman, we'll begin with you on this next question. Kitchener's signature park is named after Queen Victoria. There is a statue memorializing the Queen in the park that has become the source of some controversy over the last year or two, and it reminds us of our relationship with our Indigenous neighbors. What would you do with the statue of Queen Victoria at Victoria Park?
Well, we go back to history. Some history are fun for some people and is very painful for others. It really depends on which perspective you look at things. If we want to go and rename things back to other names, then how about we just take Kitchener and rename it back to Berlin? It was Berlin before the First World War. How far back are we going to go? How far back are we going to go? So we have to be very careful. If we want to just go back and erase the past, it is really easy. But we should not willy-nilly go and change names and bring statues down. If we do it, we should do it legally. We should sit down, bring some lawyers, bring some architect, and bring some intellect as far as the art goes, and figure out what is the best way to meet in the middle, a compromise for both. But I am not for renaming things unless somebody in the past has done something really, really nasty. Then I'm okay if we remove that statue. So I definitely leave it for a discussion of many people, not just one person whose name is the mayor of Kitchener. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nieckman. Mr. Nair, on the Queen Victoria statue.
My response won't be based on political correctness, right? It's not like a vote bank kind of thing. You have to stand on something. That's what the leadership is. It doesn't mean what you say you have to basically implement, but you can always have a discussion with others. Personally, like I said, I was born in India. India was governed by colonial British. There is so many things even till today that we have not changed, because that's part of history. You can't change history. So personally, even though I'm not a big fan of colonial monarchy or those kind of king, queen, those kind of things, I respect their leadership in a lot of other things, but I am strongly against any form of vandalism. Any form of vandalism, I won't support that, right? We can have discussion with people who are against it, but this is not the way. We are taking law into our own hands. And sometimes I feel the hands of the law enforcement are tied up because they're worried that this could escalate into something else, because even the leadership is not taking a stand. It's like ping pong. So as a leader, as a mayor, I will strongly oppose any form of statue vandalism. That is part of history. You can put some name or whatever you want to write there, saying this is what they have done, this was negatively impacted or this was positively impacted, so that people can come and read. But I will never support statue vandalism or any form of vandalism and taking law into their own hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nair. And Mr. Verbanovic, what should become of the statue of Queen Victoria?
Thanks, Mike. And it's actually in many ways appropriate that we talk about this today, because Victoria Park has become a place that really is, because of the number of people that come there, that is helping us deal with a number of issues around indigeneity, around diversity, and so on. It's where our crosswalk is, both our Pride and our Trans crosswalk. And just today, in fact, we had the dedication of the Every Child Matters crosswalk, which is part of our community's response, together with community members who came up with the idea, towards reconciliation. The issue of the statue, in terms of some of the comments being made, is a complex one, because our history as a nation is complex. And it's something that obviously the community has a lot of interest in, and why we're engaging in a community dialogue. Like my colleagues, I also share the notion that cancel culture is not the direction to go. But we have to ensure that we hear all voices in these issues, and that we then look at what is the best option for our community, an issue that many communities are grappling with, quite frankly. For example, in New Zealand, we know that their solution was not to remove statues. They worked with the Maori people and ultimately ended up creating some Maori boats that went alongside the statue with some information plaques, contextualizing, and so on. And so through this community process, I think we will be able to hear from all these voices and ultimately choose a direction that's right for Kitchener and right for our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verbanovic. As we have learned through this forum here today, not everything that a mayor of Kitchener would do could be done without support from upper levels of government. Mr. Nair, I'll begin with you on this. As mayor of Kitchener, how would you advocate for the city with upper levels of government?
One thing you have to understand, as a leader, you have two things you can do. If you have power to change, you will change because you have the power. If you don't have power, but the power is distributed, you will have a discussion with others. You need to convince them. You have to lobby them. You have to go on social media and inflate the issue. Like there is an issue, affordable. None of the politicians I have seen here has put affordable housing 5 years back. Right now, all of a sudden, there is a smoke, and nobody, no leader has taken ownership of this. It's all passing buck, just like a hockey game. The city will blame region, region will blame federal, federal will province. It's like a circle. I've dealt with so many other issues, even on the healthcare issues. It's a passing buck. As a leader, I will take ownership, and if I'm unable to do it, I'll post it on social media saying I'm unable to do it, and these are the reasons. So be transparent with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vrbanovic, how would you work with upper levels of government to advocate for the city of Kitchener?
Mike, in fact, I've been working with other orders of government for my entire time in local government. And in fact, I'm the past president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, where I represented not just Kitchener, but in fact over 2,000 cities with the federal government, and have been able to be not only our voice, but a national voice on a number of important initiatives for cities and communities across our country. As the largest city in the region, I also sit and the only voice on FCM's Big City Mayors Caucus, and together with the mayors of Cambridge and Waterloo are part of Ontario's Big City Mayors Caucus, where we advocate to the provincial government about issues that matter to cities here in our community. But I think it's important to remember that when we talk about working collaboratively together, it's not just with the federal and provincial governments, it also means working together in terms of shared services locally. And we have a big history of working together, not just with the city of Waterloo, which has probably been our closest partner, but with all the communities within the region, both the lower tier and the upper tier communities. We have many examples, such as purchasing, snow removal, the after-hour call center that we run for City of Waterloo, where we've been able to do these things together. An example from this term, in fact, has been fire dispatch. In the past, Kitchener provided fire dispatch for Waterloo, Wilmot, Woolwich, and Wellesley. We've now been able to take that on for Cambridge and North Dumfries. So we have a shared service that provides better service to all of our residents throughout the region. And just last week, in fact, we showed another example where we've been able to see Waterloo North Hydro and Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro come together for the benefit of our ratepayers with the creation of Innova Power. So there's a long history of this and something I'm committed to working on going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vrbanovic. And Mr. Nieckman, how would you work with upper levels of government to advocate for the City of Kitchener?
City of Kitchener is responsible for 60% of its infrastructure. And we know that we have no choice but to work with the upper level of governments, provincial and federal. You know, leadership is all about listening to figure out what others have to say, and then providing feedback. So if I want to talk to the federal government, I have to push, and I have to push back. And pushing back is an art. You have to learn that. Why? Because sometimes you go for something and they say no, and you should not take no as an answer. But you should push back and figure out what are the best ways that you could convey the message to federal and provincial governments that you need something, you need their help. So that's how I would approach. Of course, I'm going to talk to other municipalities as well to see if I could create a common voice, because sometimes if you are alone, nobody hears you. I will work with Waterloo, Cambridge, and other cities around me in the neighborhood, figure out if collectively we could agree with what we want, and then we approach the provincial and the Liberals all together. Hopefully, at that point, they hear us. So, a best trait of a leader is the ability to listen, and that's the key. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nieckman, and thanks to each of our candidates for sharing their visions and approaches for the City of Kitchener for the next 4 years as they vie for your vote for mayor. It's time now for our closing statements. Mr. Vrbanovic, we will begin with you, your 2-minute closing statement.
Well, let me begin by thanking Rogers Television and you, Mike, as moderator for hosting this important debate. In the 8 years since you chose me to serve as your mayor, I am proud of what our City Council, our staff, and our community have accomplished together to build a better Kitchener. Since 2014, we have built stronger neighborhoods, grown into being one of Canada's fastest growing economies, and together have worked towards building a better Kitchener that is a more inclusive and equitable city for everyone. Today, I am asking to continue to put my experience to work for you and provide the strong and steady leadership our city needs in these complex times. Together, we need to seize the opportunities and tackle the challenges before us, protecting the gains that we've made and making sure Kitchener and its residents come back stronger than ever. Today, I ask for your continued support and for your vote on October 24th. Please reach out to me through my website at www.barrionline.com, and I hope that after October 24th, I have your continued trust to represent you as Mayor of Kitchener for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verbanovic and Mr. Niekman. Closing statements.
You know, the first thing that I will do, that I push for, is to make sure we put a 2-term limit on any official role in the city. Why? Because sometimes we need fresh blood. We cannot just retire on the job. And guess what happens? When politicians, they just don't know when to quit and when to move on, then they get comfortable with their positions. And especially if a group of them in a council, they like each other, they know each other for a long time, and they vote together in a group, there will be no opposition. And there will be projects, ill-conceived, horribly executed, over budget, over schedule, with low quality. LRT is one of them. And then $1 billion that goes through the hole and through the drain, our grandkids are stuck to pay for it. So that's the first thing that I will do for you guys. But you might ask me, hey Val, tell me something that you do for me, something tangible. These are the things that I will do for you. I will do my best to grow the economy the techie way. We use the technologies. I will address homelessness promptly. I will keep the taxes where they are. I will attract talent from other cities and the globe. And I make housing affordable and available. I foster, nurture, and attract the best talent in the world. I said that, I say it again, because without those talents, we cannot prosper with the speed that we want. High-performing jobs, in turn, leads to high-performing economy, and that will benefit all of us. Thank you, and visit my website, valformayor.ca. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Niekman and Mr. Nair.
Before I talk about my closing remark, I just want to thank Rogers and our host Mike, and above all, I want to thank all the healthcare workers, because without their support, we would not have been in the studio today. So I'd like to thank all the healthcare workers. They are the unsung heroes. If I become the mayor, the things that I want to focus will be continued funding to the traditional library. Of course, affordable housing, attainable housing will be my top agenda, but continued funding to traditional library, because I am very focused on the education factor. The other one I want to focus is on mental health. That means what we need is we need people to call into a number. That means we need, in Kitchener, we need a dedicated mental health hotline number so that people can, with mental health, they can call that number and get some help, or they can talk to somebody. The other one I like to see the Kitchener city do is we want to become a pedestrian-friendly city, where people, where they live and the office should not be far away. So we need to focus on that. The other one, we need to focus on public transit. We don't have proper transit between intercities. We don't have proper transit, like let's say if you want to go to Stratford, Hamilton, London. So I want to focus, but I will talk to region also. The other one I want to focus is childcare and senior care and health and paramedic. Even though it's not my jurisdiction, I will raise that issue with my stakeholders in the province and the federal. The other one I want to focus is diversity and inclusion. So there are so many things I want to focus, but I will make sure if I have the power, I will make sure that things change, or I will be your voice. So I am Manikandan Nair. If elected as mayor, I will be a transparent and reliable mayor that you can count on. I'll give you whatever it takes to build a better Kitchener. I believe in open communication, and your suggestion will be incorporated while making decision. I won't block you on Twitter or any social media. You will have free access to me. To learn more about my platform, please visit my website, www.votefornair.ca. Thanks for listening, and remember, together we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all of our candidates here with us. We are very tight for time, so we will remind you, Val Neekman, Manny Nair, and Barry Verbanovic, your mayoral candidates in Kitchener, joining us on the local campaign here on Rogers TV. My name is Mike Farwell.